Today on Independent Wrestling Profiles, we're talking to the real article, Brian Murphy. Can you take me through your introduction initially to the wrestling industry in any capacity?
Yeah, first and foremost, it was through SmackDown versus Raw 2010. Was like the first touch with wrestling, and my friends had got it. I played it over at their house, and they were enamored with it. They were watching Raw and SmackDown, and I was a little late to the party. And it was only after they found out that it was fake that I actually started getting into it, and they had no interest. So for the longest time, I had no like wrestling friends, and now like all my friends are wrestling friends, which is a cool switch up. But come college, I had become friends with somebody that started training over at the Monster Factory over in Paulsboro, New Jersey. Uh, I had started out when I started out, I was like 330 pounds. I had not done sports since like freshman year of high school. I was not ready. I was not ready for it. So I tried to take it like I think there's this mentality when people get into training that they think like, oh, I'm supposed to just like go and do it and try it. And like if something gets messed up, it gets messed up. I found out the hard way. It's like, okay, when you're like throwing yourself at the ground, there might be some better ways to go about it. Totally twisted up my ankle, just taking a back bump. And it took me off my legs for a bit. And during that time, my leg atrophied. And so I had like a freak accident like a month later, completely tore my ACL just out the gate, like a month into training. Um, and it was actually through that I kind of had to slow down and really learn more about not only the training side of things and like getting myself into ring shape. Um, I had heard a really good thing once about like wrestling's, for everybody, but also like, we need to keep ourselves in a position where we're able to healthily and safely handle both ourselves and the person we're in the ring with. So that was definitely a lesson I learned during that time. And then also doing commentary, which somehow became like a cornerstone of what my character was like. Because from that time of being on commentary, I eventually started doing videos of like, oh, I'm gonna have my debut this Friday. And that was the thing we did every week was like, oh, I'm gonna have a debut this Friday, and then somehow I get beat up by somebody and it gets scrapped, or I didn't get it cleared in time, or something like that. And eventually it built up to like this commentator who kind of has no no right to be in the ring is getting in the ring. And I think in all, like, I'm really glad that like that's the path it took, because I think if I had not had that time to slow down, it would not have. I don't think I would have found myself in that way, and just the way that I like to carry myself in wrestling.
All right, so let's unpack a few of the steps along that journey. I do want to ask you, you said you started with SmackDown versus Raw, the video game. Did you start
Yeah,
watching it at the same time, or was it strictly the video game and then watching it came later?
it started just with the video game, and then I want to say, oh man, I think it was the Raw before the debut of the Nexus, which I can't believe that is that long ago. But it was that Raw that and I remember thinking like, oh, it's going to be this 3 hour Raw. It's going to be crazy. I had my friend come over and he wasn't a wrestling fan at all. I was like, this is going to be great. And then the Nexus debuted. I was like, oh no, this is the worst thing that's ever happened. But yeah, it was just a video game to
So
start.
no, that's fine. I've talked to a number of people that started through the video game, and one thing that I find fascinating is when you're watching the video game, you don't know the characters. You essentially know the
Yeah.
look of the character, you know their move set. So I always find it interesting. Did you have favorite characters that, or fit characters that you hated in the game that when you started watching it, you were like, oh wait, this guy sucks, or maybe just his character, but like obviously you don't get the full package with the game. And like, did you find there was any correlation between your favorites in the game and the product once you started paying attention?
Yeah, that's a great question because I think like first of all, immediately when going through the roster, we were like, this Gold Dust guy, bonkers. Um, but even more so, I think I remember just going through like trying to find my custom Titantron for my character and seeing edges and thinking, oh my god, that guy's so cool. And so then like initially he was like my favorite guy before really like watching it. And at the time when I started watching, he was heel, and I was thinking, no, that's not my edge. Go on to find out that like he's notoriously a bad guy.
Yeah.
But I think yeah, like definitely that influenced me to really like Edge. And I remember really popping at the time to see like, oh, that's the guy from the Tooth Fairy. Weird that he's in this because I like at the time I had no clue that he was also I guess he had a little bit of a career in wrestling, just a smidge.
And not to mention of all the movies, Tooth Fairy, right?
Right, right, right. That
Not
that was definitely the just like the demographic at the time. It was that in the game plan that I really knew him from.
not the Scorpion King, not Doom, the Tooth Fairy. Sounds good. Uh, so now you're into it, you're watching the show. Did you get an opportunity to discover independent wrestling, or did that come more in line with when you started doing the training portion?
I think I had of course known about it, and like I had seen like a snippet of TNA and just remembered hearing about like, oh, this AJ Styles guy is really good. I hear about that. And I think it was like around like 2012 I started to learn about like the kind of like snarky like internet like John Cena's the worst, then Roman Reigns is the worst, just like all that. And I think through that I learned about like the outside world of wrestling where it's like, oh, there's a lot more than just WWE. And I think the biggest exposure I had to that was I imagine for a lot of people around my age too was through What Culture
Oh,
and
okay.
through like Cultaholic Wrestle Talk at the time. Interesting that it was just like a bunch of British companies that were popping up, but uh, that independent scene at the time, which I know like in hindsight has had its time and its controversies, but like What Culture Pro Wrestling was like not my first encounter with the indies, but it was like I think the first indie that I really followed and was like, oh my goodness, like I can't imagine like a product like this outside of WWE. And it's really interesting to see like Gabe Kidd, who was totally different at the time, and like Joe Hendry going on and doing their thing. So that was a really cool introduction. I think it wasn't until really getting in like in person though, getting to the Monster Factory and seeing shows in person like that was my first time encountering like independent wrestling. I actually vividly remember walking into the Monster Factory for the first time and touching the ring and thinking like this feels so different than what I expected it to feel like. For some reason, the canvas and it was just the closest I had ever been to a ring. I've been to like a house show and a Raw, and now it's like I'm around it almost every week, if not training several times a week. Yeah, sorry, I kind of ramble a little bit
No,
too,
that's
but
okay.
um,
Well,
yeah,
sorry.
sorry,
Well,
God.
I was going to say, so at some point, you probably had it in the back of your mind that you'd want to be a wrestler, right? I'm pretty sure we all fantasize about breaking the curtain at WrestleMania when we're playing the games as kids and watching the show. yes, you had that trigger event of somebody else going to the Monster Factory, but where was your mentality at that? And were you looking for that opportunity and it just came up? Like, how deep was that spark of getting into the industry when that happened?
I think there had always been like a side to me that was like always really interested in like the performing arts. Like the big dream before wrestler was being an actor, and then also like a YouTube, personality. And I think the one thing I'm kind of grateful for was that person who introduced me to the Monster Factory kept being like dude, like when are you doing it? When are you coming around? And I think it kind of took that for me. I'm always one to kind of be like, oh, that'd be cool, and then like it's always just like a pipe dream. And I think that kind of gave me the nudge to actually like jump both feet in and then tear my ACL. But subsequently find my way into like actually doing the dang thing. And I think like with I would like to think I would find my way into wrestling uh, in whatever universe. But yeah, I think that's what really pushed it in was like having people around me nudge me closer towards it.
So you said that you didn't have like the athletic background when you started, or at least it was in a distant past. Were you actively doing performance? Like, were you acting, doing drama? Like, did you at least have that character side of it to bring with you?
Yeah, like absolutely, absolutely. Uh, I had always been doing like theater ever since I was young. I was it was there was this small company called Acting Naturally that we did plays through. I had done high school theater, and then in high school, and then more so in college, I got involved in it's speech and debate. They call it forensics as well, and it's a very minimalist form of like competitive performing arts. So that was something that actually in terms of like promos, um, it's since that time I've definitely needed to go back and try to intentionally sharpen my skills. But like at that time, that really helped out with like working on promos and building character, and that's been primarily when getting feedback. That's always been like cited as more of my strength. Certainly over the athletic stuff, which hey, is fine. But I've definitely seen that those two lanes, both the sports lane and the character lane, are the like the theater lane, yeah, are the two pipelines that get people into the industry.
Yeah, and at the very least, it makes you comfortable speaking, which is obviously a big part of promos and commentary, and a large part of the industry that maybe people don't recognize. All right, so talk to me about the really negative experience here, the tearing of the ACL. What happened? How did you stay motivated despite the fact that it happened so early and didn't necessarily like, I mean, some people might have been scared away at that point. So how did that happen, and how did you deal with all of that?
It definitely for a time I think made me second guess or made me wonder, especially because I was thinking like and God bless my family for like helping me out so much during the recovery process. In the back of my mind, I was thinking if I go back to that place and try to continue to wrestle, they're gonna be like, dude, what are you doing? Um, and I remember thinking too during the early recovery process. I remember trying to just like lift my leg, just like the kind of like a hip flexion motion, and having just such a surreal disconnect between like what my brain is telling my body to do and what's happening, which is nothing. And thinking like, man, if this ever happened again, I I would just hang it up. Like there's no way. I don't know if I would even want to do the surgery again. I would just do like some PT and that be it. And I'm so glad that like that now the mindset's totally different. Like having had wrestling to push me to want to get better, um, physically and like mentally as well, in terms of like trying to live a more balanced life. Um, I think it's totally changed my mindset in terms of like, no, like this is worth it. You know, you got to press through these things. In terms of like how it happened, it was just like a really weird freak accident of we had these really uh like tarpy aprons at the time, and it kind of like stuck up. And I remember thinking right before I did this, I was like, I'm not in shape to be just jumping down from the apron. I that's all it was jumping down from the apron. I was thinking like, I'm not in a position to be doing this. I shouldn't be doing this. And then I did it. And my left leg gets caught. I caught myself on my right foot for a second. I'm thinking, man, maybe I do got some athleticism, but then I feel a pop. I was thinking, oh no. So at the time it was like, maybe it'll go away. I'll just keep walking it off. It didn't go away. And eventually, it was like, all right, time to face the music at the MRI. Yeah, it was it was kind of surreal. And I remember also thinking like, I'm gonna not use any scar cream or anything. I'll just make it. It'll be part of my lore. It'll be part of my story, and people can work, the leg during the match. And then in a lot of cases, you work the left leg. It's on my right leg. And I'm thinking, I got the scar for nothing. But oh well, maybe I'll just get like a tattoo on the other leg. I don't know.
It's such an interesting paradigm because most people are conditioned to risk aversion. So you get injured, you try to avoid the activity that caused it. And athletes specifically, I mean, wrestlers, but all athletes, they run headfirst back into the fire after they get the opportunity.
Oh
Now,
yeah.
you said you were doing more commentary, promos, sketches, things like that before you actually got into just like standard performing on a regular basis. Can you kind of take me through the shift there? What was the event that flicked the switch and actually had you go into like full-time performing? Or I don't know if that's the right word, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, like in ring. Uh, I think to an extent, it was always definitely something I wanted to do. Um, I had kind of, I think, uh, to some extent, like getting like familial approval into the going towards wrestling, or like trying to explain like, oh, this is where I'm going at the time, because it was right after the pandemic. I was staying with family at the time. I kind of fit and was just like, I'm just going for commentary and to like work out sometimes. I'm not gonna wrestle. And then secretly I'm like, I wanna do it. So like a year, came around after the surgery, which is the time that my or my surgeon and my physical therapist had said like that's the time we want to give is 1 year. Um, and in that time, I had just like been around it so much more, and I think there was just something so infectious about seeing like not only like it up close, but like my friends and like what they're doing with it, and then also like working on like sketches. Um, I was almost like a manager for a tag team at a time, and we were just producing like so many sketches and getting into the weeds of editing, which I found out with CapCut. Not that it's anything like super advanced, but it's just like I love doing it. Um, I was like, I want all of this. I want to be doing like this all the time, and then on top of that, selfishly, I want to be doing it for me and my stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it'd be cool to be able to like form, those stories and those promos. Which I found out like storytelling on the indies is a lot harder than one may think. But yeah, I think it was just being around it really pushed me.
And I did actually want to pick your brain about that because with the indies, you are often performing to different audiences, new audiences that have never seen you before. I mean, like I saw you in Canada, at UCW, and I wanted to talk to you about, your perception and your value of the sketches because that's what made you immediately stand out, right? Was
Thank you.
you're in a whole new audience that doesn't see you week to week. So you have a smaller window to captivate that audience. And when you come out and you're, wearing the jersey of another province and, you're getting people to kind of side with you, side against you, it really is important to have. And yes, you can have an amazing technical match and people win you over, but that's not as immediate. That is a slower burn. So talk to me just about that mentality, about your view, your take on the value of those sketches in particular.
I think like zooming out and looking at like what really makes people like wrestling fans. Um, uh, Certainly the in ring aspect is a really big part of it. But like I think if you really ask most people, it is the storytelling and it is the investment in character. Um, like thinking of just like the Bloodline saga, which I know is I feel like a bit of a dead horse to bring up in this format or like in the discussion of storytelling and wrestling, but like it really was something that just like I was like I need to watch this every week, and so my desire has always been like I want to do that. I want to create something like that, and what's been challenging on like the independent level is like I think we can often get into this headspace of like we have the whole concept fleshed out in our mind and in our heads, and it's like I'm really into it. I fully understand it. Surely everybody else is as invested in it as I am. Um, and what's been like reality check sometimes is even going to like other people on shows or going to like people that are like booking stuff and pitching ideas of like, well, this happened at this show, and like so we can dovetail that into this, and they're like, I don't like I'm here and I don't even remember that happened. So like to expect the audience to be like really invested, so one takeaway I've had is like you really gotta try to like first of all try to make him post as much as you can. In terms of like if you're trying to get an idea over or a story over or a dynamic, then you got to really make that abundantly clear, and also like not to insult like people's intelligence, but like I think it's less that like oh somebody won't get it, but it's more so like you got to make it really obvious because they're not going to care to maybe dig more until you win them over. Um, and then also on the day of the show, you got to reiterate, like when all of the teammates came out for the Americans that were coming up to Canada, I was like, all right, I'm gonna hold out my hand to dap me up, just no sell me, and like we'll get over this idea of like I'm an idiot. You guys don't really roll with me, and that's that's the bit. Um, so like reiterating that on the back end, so it's um I think in large, it's like that's going to be the core of it, and like the videos are ideally going to be the frosting that like if somebody has that desire to go in and invest more, hopefully it's like they're rewarded for getting like digging deeper into like, well, that was interesting. Let me learn a little bit more about this person, or like ideally, and this has been my objective as well, and what I hope to have as like my selling point for a booking side of things is like I want to have videos do well, so that people are like, wait, I want to know about that show, and maybe check it out. So it's tough. It's really tough on the independent scene to have the stories really perforate, but sometimes when it comes together, I'd like to think that it can really turn out really solid, especially if you have a good solid promotion that like you can really get in there and like treat like home and everything.
Yeah, the home base fans will know you, but it is when you branch out and you see people maybe just one time, right? How you make that first impression a lasting impression. Take me
Yeah.
through a little bit of the highlights of your career thus far. Not to insinuate that it's anywhere near done, but what are some of the key moments that you'll look back on from your wrestling career thus far?
I think my favorite moment, um, there's a wonderful guy, Jake Manley, who has also been at the Monster Factory, and we've worked together other places. Uh, we were able to, I think, manifest as much of a like cohesive story as we could in that when I debuted and um, finally got off the commentary table, I went on like a little winning streak on our weekly Friday night shows that we did for free. And it was kind of just like I trip and I accidentally pin the person.
Oh.
And it was always like, if I had any agency in it, it was a roll up, like, so the roll up, people started throwing fruit roll ups at me too, which became like an inside bit. And then eventually he came out and killed the winning streak. Like he in kayfabe, he's the Broad Street bully. He was like, dude, like you're a joke, you're a sham. You belong on the commentary table. And I'm really really happy with like the matches that we had. And it culminated after he beat me. I went on a losing streak. We had a Saturday show, which was kind of like our pay per views, a hair versus hair match. And he, despite going bald, like he's like, he's like, first of all, it's going to work out perfect because everybody thinks that you're going to lose. But he let me shave his head, and my roommates, Sebastian Valentino, Mark Rasper Jr., who were also in that 6-man scramble in Canada at UCW. They got to be a part of that, and then also Christian Darling and Stevie Brooks, also from the Monster Factory. Um, so I'm grateful that he was willing to have that, and then also I think again that was just like the most like cohesive that a story from start to finish over the span of over a year. I kind of felt. So yeah, I really enjoyed that, and then also having the opportunity to work 2 matches now with Ricardo Rodriguez.
Oh.
That was also just really fun.
Awesome, awesome. I have to do the wrestling interview 101. I know it is a little cliche, but who is the dream opponent? Don't tie yourself to reality. I would like to ask that you stick to somebody who is alive and lacing up their boots today, just so that we don't open a very large window to historic figures. But if I could sign a magic contract and book you on a match tomorrow against anybody, who would it be and why?
Oh man, I think there are like three names that come to mind. Kevin Owens, I think, is just like first of all my favorite. I think maybe ever. Both for his character work, but then also like having had a very similar build to him at the age of like 17, 18, and then on through college, seeing somebody that looked like me being like, oh, they can do it, I could do it, and also like having amazing matches too. I would love to do a storyline with him, and like I would love to do like a don't meet your heroes type story. I think that'd be great. And then Santino Morello, if he's still continuing to work, I think he is.
Yeah, from
He's
time to
still working,
time.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
And Colt Cabana. Both the like I love comedy wrestling and bits and just being silly, and first of all, I think I'd learn so much just from working with them. But also I my dream would just be like I just want the most comedy in as possible.
Now sticking to a little bit more in the realm of reality, and not to say that those other things aren't possible, but what do you want to see out of your wrestling career moving forward in the short term? Maybe some goals that you want to cross off the bucket list, promotions you want to work for, destinations you want to hit, other wrestlers that you'd like to compete with that maybe you've crossed paths with but haven't had a chance to get in the ring with?
Yeah, I the first name that immediately comes to mind is Big Billy Gold. He is currently tearing it up in the Jersey area. And I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of really cool people throughout Jersey. But he's somebody that just like his energy. Him and Pat Dynamite, who I have the pleasure of being able to work with on March 28th over at Mawa Saturday night. Uh, they had this amazing match at the last MAWA show, and uh, he comes out to Cotton Eye Joe. Immediately, the second he comes through the curtain, he's just screaming, and the energy is so infectious. He's just somebody that like he's just so fun. He's so fun. So I would really love to work with him. Um, and then in terms of like where I think would be in between like a reach goal that's like still realistic, like obviously, I think a lot of us would love to see contracts and would love to be on TV. But I think something that I would really, really, really love to see one day is working with Mystery Wrestling up in
Okay.
Canada.
All right.
Like what they're doing over there, it is like it's such a love letter to just like all the quirks of wrestling, and then also just sincerely so funny, like so funny. I think we've seen for a very long time on like TV, sometimes like the comedy not always landing, and there's always something like at once a match in watching what they're producing that it's just it's outstanding. The Eddie Guerrero spot, the London Lightning, and Sizzle Nick's bid where London does the chair shot, and then Sizzle is just like, well, and he just dives through a table in the corner. It's amazing.
And mystery wrestling seems tailor-made for somebody with your leanings in the industry for sure. Now, mystery wrestling is primarily in Canada. You did recently come to Canada. Can you tell me a little bit, without pandering, just for more of the local audience, kind of how you felt about that? How was that experience for you? Do you see yourself being a little bit more active on the Canadian scene?
Absolutely, I would love to. It was a really cool experience. I wish we got to spend some more time because the night before we did a show in South Jersey, and then the next day we did a show in like Central Jersey, which some people debate if Central Jersey is actually a thing, but we and that was in the afternoon, so we were in Canada for, let's see, I want to say from like early Saturday morning, and then we left the hotel at like 3 4 a.m. uh and so we didn't really get a lot of time, and like even just being able to like uh, vibing with the energy. I really like it there. I really, really like it there. I would love to return. I definitely I would love to return for the next UCW show, which I don't know anything official, so let me not say let me not say any dates, but I'm pretty sure we might see a little bit more later this year. Um, and also just shout out to Kyle over there, who got in touch with us about heading up there. Um, an outstanding gentleman, and just somebody that has made the experience abundantly friendly. So yeah, I've had some friends that have like had some other bookings up there, and I've been like, hey, if you ever want to jump in the car, so I would absolutely love to make another trip up on there and actually get like a full Canadian experience and like actually sit down and do a proper Tim Hortons review. That's something. After doing so many videos talking about Tim Hortons, I didn't actually get to sit down and do it.
I
So
uh I remember watching some of those videos and thinking not as many Canadians are going to defend it as you might think they are. But that's cool. No worries, no worries. I mean, to each their own. Uh, is that the
I think I heard as much.
yeah? Is that the furthest that you've traveled for a show so far?
Yeah, I would say definitely. I've done down to Virginia before, which was about like 5 hours, but this was I think about like eight and a half in the car. So like yeah, I think that's the farthest thus far. Hopefully not the farthest it will ever be, but yeah, and to be able to say like, hey, I've done something internationally, like I'm so incredibly grateful for that opportunity.
All right, so I mean, feel free to be as honest as you want with this one, but how do you deal with an 8.5 hour car ride without getting on people's nerves, without losing your patience, without having to stop and stretch your legs every little bit? Like, that's a long time, and wrestlers do it all the time. How do you get through that?
So this is not wrestler etiquette. This is not wrestler etiquette. I slept a lot of it. I slept a lot of it. And which you want to be awake and engaging with the driver and the other people in the car. Thankfully I did have some great people I was riding with. There was another car that came on up that had Bobby Buffet, Liam Black, and Controlled Chaos, all outstanding wrestlers. And then I think we also had a very strong car in Chris Desmond, Sebastian Valentino, Mark Raspa Jr. Um, and those guys again, I live with them, and like truly they've become like family to me. So and which hey, family too. we'll get on each other's nerves, but like I think like we just have a strong dynamic. We kind of speak each other's language in terms of the bits that we do and the humor that we have. So like it's never really come up. Like we've gone along great. So thankfully, being in a compact space for that long wasn't too bad. The other thing that I invested in on the last few hours that I think really could have made a difference the whole time was a neck pillow. I I thought that they were kind of a scam. Not it makes a difference. It makes a difference.
Okay, so if I was to root through what you said, sleep and a neck pillow for sleep, all of a sudden 8.5 hours doesn't seem so bad.
It becomes a little bit more like two.
So one thing I like to ask everybody before we close out is for a piece of advice. If you could go back and talk to a younger version of yourself who is just starting out or on the fence about starting out, or somebody who is currently contemplating wrestling school, what is the most important piece of advice that would just ease that transition for you?
I think the thing that immediately comes to mind more than anything is that everybody's on their own journey, and there might be people that like instantly get it and they immediately kind of skyrocket. Um, and then there are folks that like don't get it for a while, and then all of a sudden it clicks and then they skyrocket. There are times that there are people that do get it and then they kind of lose their way and then they might find it back. Regardless, you can't compare apples to oranges and think like, man, this person's doing X, Y, and Z. What am I doing wrong? What am I, like I think it's always healthy to review what you're doing and try to work out like hey, what's working, what's not. But you can't psych yourself out and think like, man, I'm never going to make it. I'm never going to get booked. I'm never going to have success because like that person that started at this time or after me or around the same time as me, they were already doing this. Because, I think the first year that I had in this industry, I was on the shelf and not doing anything. And not that I've, worked gangbusters or I've really, broken the ceiling on, the local scene or anything. But I remember thinking at times like, man, I feel foolish for thinking I'd be able to work a match. And now I've had dozens, if not maybe a couple hundred now. And like, uh, I think it's like, just take your time. It's a today industry. What are you doing today to be the best version of yourself? And you can't look at other people and think, well, their day's better, so my day's not good.
Fantastic, fantastic. So before we sign out, can you just let people know once again who you are, maybe where they can follow you on social media if they want to keep up to date with what you do have coming up?
Absolutely. I am Brian Murphy. I am most active on Instagram at Brian with an I Murphy PW. And I'm also on TikTok. I have a Facebook page. I have a YouTube channel that I've been trying to upload to a little bit more, especially with shorts. And then my next show is going to be at MAWA, Mid Atlantic Wrestling Alliance, on March 28th. I get to have an interview with Pat Dynamite, so that's gonna be great. That's gonna be fun.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Independent Wrestling Profiles. Please help out the show if you can with a like, subscription, or review. We'll see you next time.
This program is a proud part of the Swear to Pod Network.